command and reclaim these relics of hatred!
It has been a near-perfect wrap-up for the first season of the ongoing X-Men 97, a show that seeks to revive the brilliance and nostalgia of the X-Men animated series from the 90s. We have done amazing comic book story arcs covered in the earlier episodes with a subtle twist from the showrunners, and now the stage is all set for the 3-part season finale. However, a couple of key characters seem to be missing from the major action taking place, and in this video we will take a closer look at the roles that Professor Xavier and Storm might assume in the finale to turn the tides of the epic battle in favor of the X-Men. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Surrender the boy, or face my fury!
Where are Storm and Professor Xavier so far in the X-Men 97? The storyline featuring Storm started off in a familiar fashion when the show began, but she endured a fatal blow when she lost her powers in the second episode. Since then, it has been a soul-searching journey for her as she stepped away from the X-Men in order to find herself. She encountered Forge, who promised to help her in getting her powers back. What followed in the subsequent episodes is a narrative that comic book readers are familiar with, where Storm and Forge develop a romantic connection with a brief misunderstanding between the two when Storm realized that Forge had once helped in developing the weapon that was fired by the Executioner to take away her powers. Storm learned to accept the loss of her powers, and finally, in the 6th episode titled Life Death Part 2, Storm gets her powers back while dealing with a demonic adversary. She seemed to have conquered her inner fears, and this time around, the return of her mutant abilities seemed to make her even more powerful than before. The last we saw of her was when she witnessed the mutant massacre in Genosha following the Sentinel attack, and she looked like she was fuming and in shock at the tragedy. Meanwhile, Professor Xavier's character introduction was a pleasant surprise in the show because previously the narrative laid it down in such a way that most people assumed him to be dead and long gone. In the 6th episode that saw Storm getting her powers back, we also got to see Professor Xavier after a long period of absence. The narrative introduced 2 alien races, the Kree and the Shi'ar Empire, and the telepathic professor seemed to warm up to his new life alongside his love interest, the Shi'ar Empress Lilandra. He seemed to be ready to leave his memories on the Earth behind as he prepared for life as a leader of the Shi'ar Empire beside his Empress, but his psychic abilities helped him in learning about the disasters that the X-Men and the mutants on Earth had experienced. After finding out about the crisis of his beloved X-Men, he developed cold feet and seemingly sacrificed his personal interests in favor of returning back to Earth to help the X-Men. It became clear that repairing the weakened human-mutant relations and helping out the mutant superheroes who were like his children were his topmost priority for Professor Xavier. How Magneto's absence makes it essential for Professor Xavier to have a key role in the season finale. So far, the X-Men have been led by their traditional enemy, Magneto, who had a change of heart following the departure of his old friend, Professor Xavier, who left him in charge of everything that he had built. Magneto stayed true to his promise and proved his credentials as a capable leader, but the Genosha mutant massacre left him missing after getting hit by a Sentinel blast. In the 7th episode, which introduced a new villain named Bastion, it was revealed that Magneto is still alive but in captivity. Bastion seemed to have a sinister plan for Magneto's future, and it turned out that Bastion was also the true mastermind behind the Genosha attacks. Bastion was preparing lethal prime sentinels, and there is a good chance that he will turn Magneto into one of them. In such a situation, the X-Men will be left without a leader, and they are already in total disarray following the death of Gambit and the emotional conflict amongst themselves. In this hour of crisis, they need their familiar father figure back to assume leadership roles, and Professor Xavier can be the one to put things back in order. That being said, the 7th episode also revealed that Mr. Sinister and Bastion are aware of Xavier being alive, and Bastion seems to have plans of his own to counter the psychic powerhouse. If he can neutralize Professor Xavier before he can make a solid impact, it will be a battle half won for them. It remains to be seen in what capacity Professor X is reintroduced among the X-Men, but you can be sure that the show will bring him back in action, because surely they didn't spend half of an episode to elaborate on his side of the story just to not use him anymore. Why Storm and Forge should join a fight. With the threat of the Prime Sentinels looming large, it is clear that the X-Men have encountered a challenge like never before. Their brief encounter with Bolivar Trask turned into a Prime Sentinel revealed that they are not equipped to deal with this threat on their own, and they will need all the assistance that they can get. In such a situation, the addition of a powerful mutant like Storm, who is almost a goddess of the weather, with her incredible abilities seems to be like a shot in the arm for the X-Men. She was last seen with Forge, and his inventive powers can also help the X-Men come up with something effective enough to fight the high-tech Sentinels. As we've discussed already, Storm was in a lot of pain and anger when she watched the massacre on Genosha on television, and she must be willing to rejoin her former teammates at the earliest as they fight such superior forces. The show even gave her a new costume when she regained her powers, and now she seems to be more in control of the weather elements than she was before. Surely the writers didn't put in all that effort to not use her when it matters the most. Storm was kept away from the events of Episode 7, as was Professor Xavier, but the stage is set perfectly for both of them to make a climatic comeback. Marvel's verdict. Storm and Professor Xavier might just change the course of the battle. You have to admit all that has happened so far that the X-Men did not look like the favorites in their upcoming battle against the Prime Sentinels, led by Bastion and Mr. Sinister. Moreover, the possibility of Magneto coming back as a deadly villain to haunt them also stacks the odds against him. In such circumstances, they need characters like Cable from the future and Storm with her reacquired powers to step up and join the fight. Professor Xavier is the best leader that one can hope for in such situations, and you can expect him to come up with clever plans and break the odds to emerge victorious. With Season 2 of the show already announced, it may not be the perfect closure that we are hoping for in Season 1, and some aspects might be kept at a cliffhanger. That being said, you can expect the likes of Storm and Professor Xavier to save the day, because if they don't, well, no one can. The only reason that they might fail is if the narrative chooses to adapt a post-apocalyptic storyline from the comics where the X-Men are down and out and must wage a daring fight back in the next season to set things back in order. Don't forget to tell us in the comments below about your thoughts on the season finale of X-Men 97, and also let us know what you would like to see from Professor Xavier and Storm in the decisive climatic battle. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.